Hi, folks. Welcome to Tuesday's edition of the I Write Radio podcast. Today, we're going to have a chat about the big Twitter spat that's going on at the moment. Sarah Smith of the BBC is getting a bit of a kicking. We'll have a chat about Priti Patel and her I Hate Foreigners legislation at Westminster. Both we, Ginger Doug and Peter Bell, have written pieces today for those of you indie inclined. Stewart's going to give us a précis of what they're saying. And I think we might be asking some questions about where Boris has got to. He seems to have turned into the invisible man. Jimmy, we'll let you open up with a beautiful and alluring Sarah Smith.
Aye. Our comments last night on the 10 o'clock news have drawn some pretty strong criticism, shall we say. I don't know about Sarah Smith, mate. I mean, to be the Scottish political editor under Donalda McKinnon, you've got to be an arch-unionist. That seems to be the way. But my God, Sarah Smith embraces a cold hatred of 50% of the electorate, it seems to me. She's so dismissive of anything that the Scottish government does. And she desperately seems to want to. I wonder if there's something personal in there. I wonder if she really despises Nicholas Sturgeon, if Nicholas maybe made a tit of her at some point. Because last night I thought was pretty disgusting what she had to say. And frankly, the after the Twitter spat, what she's come back and said this morning is equally as bad.
Well, let's have a quick look at what she actually said. She said this both on the 6 o'clock and the 10 o'clock news. Mm-hmm. So here we go, guys.
Scotland editor Sarah Smith is in Glasgow for us this evening. So no change for some time yet, Sarah?
Yeah, the Scottish Government are planning to publish a document, a route map, on Thursday this week, which will outline how they plan to cautiously and gradually ease some lockdown restrictions. But no changes will actually be introduced until the 28th of May at the earliest. So it will be the end of the month before people in Scotland can sit in the park, play a game of golf or tennis, visit a garden centre, or maybe even restart some outdoor work like on construction sites. Now, the Scottish Government say that, like all of the UK nations, they base their advice on expert advice that they are given and that it's got nothing to do with politics. But it has been obvious that Nicholas Sturgeon has enjoyed the opportunity to set her own lockdown rules and not have to follow what's happening in England or other parts of the UK. The gamble is whether or not people will continue to support her taking a different path when they're living under more stringent restrictions than people in other parts of the United Kingdom.
Sarah Smith in Glasgow, thank you.
An unfortunate choice of words.
Well, yeah, that's how Sarah would have you see it. But how is it she, rather than enjoy this morning, she said that Nicola had embraced the decision.
Which,
either way, she's just making out that this is somehow political, when the First Minister has absolutely stated that there's nothing to do with politics. It's her choices and her Cabinet's choices based on health concerns.
Well, Stewart, you've got a couple of...
Well, she got the Nicholas Sturgeon's rejoinder. First of all, she's very, very upset. Never in my entire political career have I enjoyed anything less than this. My heart breaks every day for all those who have lost loved ones to this virus. And she's quite right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a disgusting statement from Sarah Smith. She's a woman over-promoted because of her birth. One of those people, who she knows and not what she knows. And on top of that, I don't know if you noticed, she slipped in another dagger when she described the timing of the easing of the Scottish easing of the lockdown. If it happens, it starts happening next week. She called it the end of the month, as if it was further away.
Well, see, Stewart, that's where, unfortunately, with the Twitter spat and that's where certain things have been missed here. I think Nicholas Sturgeon's played a blinder here, and it will be the end of the month. You're right, it's the end of next week, but what we have at that point is a 3-week gap between where England started to ease the lockdown and before Scotland started to ease it. If there's going to be any spike from England's actions, if there's going to be any increase in the R rate, for example, that'll happen next week. So before we take any decisions, we'll see how the decisions that England have taken react on the R number, and we can then use that knowledge wisely to take our own decisions and to perhaps phase them in a better manner.
Jimmy, I would hate to think you're suggesting that a Scottish government is using the people of England as an experiment.
Absolutely.
See what's best for the Scottish people.
Well, let's be clear, mate. The people of England are being used as an experiment by their Prime Minister, the ever disappearing Mr. Boris. So why shouldn't we take advantage of that fact and collect as much data from the mistakes they appear to be making and make sure that we don't do the same?
Well, look, I'm not going to get terribly upset about what Sarah Smith says. I find that this is going on, day in, day in, day in. They're actually constantly attacking devolution at the moment, which, as we know, is very popular in Scotland. Independence may be 50-50, but devolution is very popular. And attacking devolution is simply moving the people of Scotland further away from this union.
I think the other noticeable point there, Stuart, and you're bang on, mate, is when she said it's a gamble as to whether people will continue supporting her. Well, it's not much of a gamble when you take a look at the polling and just how much support she already has from the people of Scotland.
What do these people at the BBC actually read?
I've no idea. They're not reading anything. They're not taking the polling that we get a look at and actually referring to it at all. I mean, how's it a gamble when she's got 80-odd% support of the public?
I mean, does Sarah Smith think the BBC policy of not advertising polls except when it suits their particular political stance, I should add with a modicum of, well, whatever. But she obviously hasn't been following them.
Well, I think she's acting under the misapprehension that because the BBC don't publicise polls that they didn't like, the rest of us didn't read them, which is just
so I like to read them, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about Boris Johnson, has he been in public since Prime Minister's Questions last week? Has anybody seen him on the telly anywhere?
I've not, mate. No, I don't think he has. I think him and his advisors considered that was a bit of a battering that he got last week, so he's just went into hiding. He's a petulant man-child. He's not as bad as Donald, but he's not booting the ass off it. And he did. He kind of got a... And it wasn't even that Keir Starmer gave him a battering. It was his own inadequacies that were showing up. Keir Starmer just kind of allowed Boris to make a complete ass of himself. So
do you think maybe
it's totally in hiding? He must be in a fridge somewhere, mate. He must be checking out the interior of a fridge somewhere, and he's got to come out of hiding tomorrow, hasn't he, for PMQs again?
Well, I just have a vision of him in a fridge at RADA, getting slip notes on acting.
Aye.
His style is so without substance, and it's coming home to roost.
Mm-hmm. I think we all. I mean, let's be clear. None of us are Labour supporters, but I think long ago,
Jimmy, you can't just say that, right? There might be English people watching who will presume we're Tories. We are definitely not Tories. And we don't vote for the Labour Party. Is that okay?
But okay, nice wee clarification there, mate. But basically, when the writing was on the wall that Starmer was going to win the Labour leadership, I think all three of us kind of agreed that he's not the man that we would pick for that job, but what he would do is embarrass Boris Johnson at the dispatch box. I didn't think it would be quite so much and quite so quickly, but
with so much support from the Tory press.
I mean, you can't even call Boris a part-time Prime Minister now, mate. He's not even part-time. He disappears on a Wednesday, and then that's it. For him not to be taking these nightly press conferences is horrendous. I mean, come on, during the campaign, to run away from Andrew Neil was one thing, but it's not like you're dealing with Andrew Neil every night. You're dealing with a bunch of numpties that ask Diddy questions at that press conference, and he wouldn't even do that.
And you have total control of who's there. Stewart.
Maybe he's not well.
That struck me. Maybe he's had a relapse.
I mean, it's
I'll tell you-
possible. There's no definite evidence that you can get over COVID-19.
Yeah, but come on, it was only the other day he was talking about how he needed to start an attack on obesity because obesity is one of the things that can hit you harder with the COVID. He's got some cheek when he's 17 and a half stone and 5'10" to have a pop at anybody that's obese.
Oh, he's fatter than me then.
You think he's doing press-ups in a sauna somewhere?
To be honest, mate, I think they've got a couple of
Sorry,
high-powered Tory barristers, and they're trying to teach him how to actually deal with somebody like Keir Starmer. But when he works, you're right. He's a man of very little substance, and if he's got a rejoinder, he's not quick enough to think it. He's probably the kind of guy who walks out of Parliament going, "Shit, I wish I'd said that. Shit, I wish I'd said that."
Aye, well. Talking about Tories, Priti Patel has got her anti-European legislation through with a classic quote: "We are ending free movement to open Britain up to the world."
Nobody, look, they might.
What?
Can you look? Before she said that, they must have tested it at least at the top of the stairs in the department. Just like, can you imagine it? The scene from The Thick of It. What are you going to say, Minister? What are you going to say? Oh, well, I'm going to say this. And she must have tried it, and they must have told her that's just absolute rubbish.
Yeah, the only people that'll be talking to Priti Patel at the Home Office these days will be her spads. I can't see many of the civil servants being willing to give her any advice or any criticism other than the bare minimum that they have to keep their jobs.
Well, the bullying accusations have disappeared into the mists of coronavirus.
Aye, because the investigation was held by her own party.
Yeah, well.
Let's be clear, she's still the first Home Secretary ever to face a tribunal for constructive dismissal from the senior civil servant at her department. And that, when it happens, will blow up in her face massively, I think.
And she was also apparently in the pockets of the Israeli Secret Service.
Well, actually, a question that's maybe worth thinking about is how many of Boris Johnson's frontline cabinet team haven't been sacked from a cabinet position before? Because when you've got her and that Diddy, Gavin Williamson, he was horrific on Sunday when he tried to...
If Boris Johnson ever talks about national security, ever, it should just go Williamson. Because he was sacked for leaking secrets.
Right. Well, a fair play to Williamson, mate. I sat and watched that on Sunday there. I meant to mention it yesterday. He's managed the incredible feat of being even creepier as education minister than Michael Gove was. Now, that's a hell of a fucking bar that he's jumped over there. I mean, you wouldn't know what... I know he's only education secretary, but the way he speaks, God, you wouldn't know what I'm anywhere near kids.
Every time I hear Michael Gove's name, I think Slivey Gove.
It's very much like Ken Baker back in the day. Mind when they had Ken Baker as a slug and spitting image? Gove's exactly like that.
No, I just always think of him as a cokehead. Look at him, there's him standing there in the House of Commons behind the Speaker's chair, hanging on like grim death, looking as though he's about to have a fit.
Mick the Sniff.
So other things that this legislation brought up, we've upped the payment that non-British nationals are expected to pay the NHS for use of. No doubt all the people in the NHS who have to pay it and are risking their lives for us just now will be very grateful for Patel's extra 225 quid they've got to pay, 625 altogether.
It's actually quite scandalous that they hinted that payment would be got rid of for people who work in care homes and people who work in the NHS.
Yeah, well,
they've got rid of it. It's suspended, I think, for a year for NHS workers.
But you see, I mean, you guys are talking about the detail. I think it's horrific. The idea in the middle of this huge, the biggest health crisis of our generation, our lives, and we're not easing the way for foreign potential care workers to come into this country, and we're not paying them a decent wage. This is the scandal we should be talking about.
Okay.
Well, given how
What are we talking about, Stuart? We're talking about legislation that's stopping that.
Oh, it's just a detail. I mean, it should be. This should be all. If we didn't have a supine press, it would be all over the newspapers. It would be all over the other TV channels that aren't doing it.
Okay. What was the other bit of the legislation? There was something else. Can't remember.
Well, while you're thinking about it, that I've noticed that some people started, instead of talking about calling her Priti Patel, they've started calling her Ugly Patel. I think that might just annoy her.
that's a bit harsh. I mean, she's so image conscious that you never see her from below the breasts because she's actually shaped like a bloody triangle.
It's a bit weird. I did notice that the picture that was accompanying the press release was of her when she was a little lighter.
She's built like an iceberg.
I've got a horrible feeling I met her family once upon a time, because she came across from East Africa, didn't she, with
Idi Amin.
Idi Amin threw all the Asians out.
I think they actually got out before Idi Amin, if I remember rightly. I think they'd actually come to the UK before Idi Amin went mental.
And they put a lot of them,
for some reason.
They put a lot of them into camps and reception camps in the west of England, and I was driving taxis in those days. So I was in and out of one near Glastonbury, moving these people around.
All the Ugandan Asians I met all were in corner shops.
Oh, this was just the first few weeks after they arrived, you know.
There was one particular guy in Dalry, for those of you that know Edinburgh. He was really funny. Really, really nice guy. He lost a lot. His family had 3 factories.
All the ones that I met were right grafters, like.
Oh, aye. This guy was hilarious. Like, he was actually Sikh. But he had a great sense of humour considering what
I'm a bit poorly myself.
Aye. Okay, Stuart, you've cast your eye over a Wee Ginger Doug article and Peter A. Bell article. I think your thoughts were they were agreeing.
Generally speaking, the Wee Ginger Doug, he brings up the word exceptionalism, British exceptionalism, delusions of British exceptionalism. Essentially what he's saying is that, more or less what my narrative has been for quite a few weeks now, is that all these attacks on devolution are based on this, they think, for example, let's bring up every question about the difference between the lockdown in Scotland and England is a question about, when is Scotland going to match the situation in England? It's never, why did Boris break away from the agreed deal with the rest of the nations? You know, it's always pitched in that way. And I quite like the idea that all these unionists are rabbiting on, they're attacking devolution. As I say, devolution is very popular. But there is a wonderful quote from the Doug. He does say, the UK government has decided yet again what England does, the other nations of the UK will be forced to do, irrespective of whether that's in their interests. It's like better together all again. There's those broad shoulders of the UK for you, pooling and sharing death and disease. I think that's gorgeous. But Peter Bell, who generally speaking would probably agree, let me see what he's got to say, with what the Wee Ginger Doug's saying. But the thing, I suppose the gist of what the Wee Ginger Doug is saying, it's we're waiting for all the mistakes that the unionists are going to make, and that's going to propel us to independence. But of course, that's not good enough for Peter Bell. Peter wants to move things forward at some pace. And I'll quote from him, the craven conviction that the road to independence must be paved with the mistakes, misdeeds, and malign actions of others. What about the proud principle that our fate should lie in our own hands? And I like Peter, and I hope he doesn't, he's about the same age as me, and he's probably as vulnerable as I am to this horrible disease, but hope he keeps going. I think it's worth saying.
Jimmy?
Well, I like both of the writers that we've just heard from. I think the Ginger Doug, fabulous mind, but he does tend towards hyperbole at times and use far more paragraphs than are required. But I do sympathise with Peter that I think he's sick and tired of all this stuff about alliances and new indie parties and all that. He's desperate to get things moving for a year out for an election that is absolutely vital. And I like his idea of a manifesto for independence that he's talked about before, where the Yes movement sit down, work out exactly what we want of the SNP in the next parliamentary term, sort out a manifesto specifically for independence, and then get the SNP to agree to that. Because it is time, I think we all agree that the SNP have been far too gradualist in this parliamentary term. And I understand, you can see where they've made their, no excuses, but, you know, a couple of general elections, a Brexit result that nobody was expecting. It's been a difficult term to try and move things on the independence front. But my God, people desperately want things to move on. And what we are seeing now is a disastrous English government that is dragging England down the tubes and will get worse in December with Brexit. And unfortunately, we're still attached to them. So they're pulling us towards the plug hole now.
I'm sorry. I can't see what she could have done. The only thing was to take Section 30 to court.
But we're looking back. Didn't he look back? I didn't think she could have done anything either. As I say, 2 general elections and a Brexit campaign. But put that all behind us and move forward now.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there has to be something in the SNP manifesto that says we get in with a majority. In fact, they have to be careful about how they say it. Mm-hmm. What they have to say is, if there's an indie majority in Holyrood, we're holding a referendum.
Aye, and if Boris Johnson and Whitehall say no, you're not, then we have to have a plan of action. We can't just say, "Oh, go and let us, please." We have to have a plan of action that says, you know what, we are now going to sit and discuss Scotland becoming an independent nation with you. Sit down and make this discussion, or we are going to go, I don't know, international court or whatever. We have to have a path to get away from them.
Well, Norrie's not going to like that. Norrie doesn't like UDI. And that's very...
I'm sorry. The problem with UDI is not, I mean, declare UDI for me, I'll support it. But the turmoil for the next 10 years thrown up by UDI. Because it's not some wee African country, you know, the alliances, etc., that would be thrown into complete mayhem by it. If it's the only way to go, it's the only way to go. But it's the last choice. The last choice.
Well, I don't think it'll be the last choice. There are worse. There's violence.
That's not going to happen.
Sorry, I think UDI would lead to violence.
Well, but it's better than violence. It might lead to violence. It might not. But you could have violence without UDI. That's the problem. You know, that's the worry.
Come on, we're no Northern Ireland here, guys.
I know, but no, you mentioned it. But there's loyalists in this country.
Aye, the
desperate to keep us tied.
The loyalists in this country are fat, useless diddies, mate. Their idea of doing anything proactive is to march along a street and spit at a Catholic priest in July. That's the kind of action that most loyalists in this country will take. Didn't he equate them to people in Northern Ireland?
They would be completely isolated. I mean, the most dangerous thing would be that Northern Irish loyalists came across here to get involved. The Scottish Unionists wouldn't tolerate violence from them any more than we would.
No, absolutely not. You're right. What you'd end up with is a couple of hundred diddies. The extreme of the extreme that go and bloody throw water bombs at marches and what have you in Glasgow or Lark Hall or places like that. Well, Ken, what? I didn't have a problem with Police Scotland putting their riot gear on and kicking 10 shades of people like that.
But that would be police violence.
It would shut them up quickly, though, mate, because they're cowards. These
Tasers.
people are cowards. That's why they go and demonstrate outside churches and things like that.
And on that cheery point, anybody got anything to finish with?
Oh, I did have something funny. Oh, well, what about the, talking about police and police violence, what about the, oh God, just a second. I'm going to put fingerprint security on my phone. Just makes that extra problem. It would appear the police in Wales are far more assertive about Welsh rights than anything that's happened in Scotland. Apparently, for the last 7 weeks, and then this was the 8th week, the police in Wales have been stopping English visitors driving into Wales to go to beauty spots, fining them. I mean, this has been going on for weeks, and we never hear anything like it happening in Scotland at all, do we?
Jimmy.
Well, doesn't really need to happen in Scotland. It was Scottish people that caused the problem at the start of this by running up to the Highlands. And you can blame some English, but it was Scottish people for the Central Belt that ran up to the Highlands and jumped, or wanted to go to Skye and jump on into their second homes or whatever. I think, given...
Are these like
I'm no fan of police. I'm no fan of police monetising policing anyway, so the less fines the better for stuff like that. I think the Welsh have done a good thing. I didn't think it's been a long time since the Welsh have been assertive in anything. So if they've been mildly assertive, and even if it's only Police Wales, good on them.
Don't forget, there's a history of did they call them? White settlers. They used to burn down second homes in Wales back in my day, and maybe before your time, Jimmy.
Aye, mate, come on. We're in 2020 now, no the 1970s.
Aye, well, that was a xenophobic campaign, though. That was an anti-English campaign.
And it did spill over into Scotland because the white settler campaign in Scotland was a bit like it.
Can't blame them, mate. They've been overrun. 20% of the Welsh population are the Welsh enemy.
Aye. Yeah. Well, I don't have a problem with that. They can all come up here.
They can't.
Jimmy, anything to finish with?
Not really, mate. I'm kind of looking forward to PMQs tomorrow because surely Boris has been, as we were discussing earlier, surely he's been getting a wee bit of coaching. So it'll be interesting to see Boris's coaching. I'm thinking that it'll maybe last until the third question. What do you think? Can Keir Starmer get 6? Do you think he'll get past question 3 before Boris turns into a bumbling wretch again?
I actually expect that he wishes it was like the press conference where he had a couple of experts there on either side of him. So when he gets a question that's got too much detail required for the answer, he can turn around to Gove, possibly, or Richie Sunak and say, lads, you just take this one.
I've just had a notion that what if Ian Blackford's sitting there in Skye champing at the bit and thinking, God, I could do really well and if I was to go down there and make my, be there in person and get my questions. Do you think that would be interesting?
I think the backlash with Scotland being a lockdown, if he travels to Westminster, the backlash on that will be horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
He'd need a really good excuse to be down there. Because he's
given the
his
hammering they gave to Neil Gaiman, and rightly so,
Aye.
for travelling 11,000 miles because he wanted to self-isolate on Skye. In reality, his missus was doing his nutting and he wanted to get some work done on a book, but it was stupid. But for anybody, for Scottish MPs to travel down there now, no, you're just playing into wee Jacob Rees-Mogg's idea that they want to reconstitute Parliament as it used to be because Boris is desperately needing his hearing and jeering section.
Yeah, he wants normality.
Can I mention one last person before we go? And I'm going to use the term schadenfreude to start with. The National Trust for Scotland, a lovely wee article in the National today by Michael Fry, who's the National's pet Tory. He's an independista Tory, which it's worth having somebody like that. Anyway, he doesn't think a lot of the National Trust in Scotland, and he points out that it's a bit complicated. But of course, we all know that one of the reasons the National Trust for Scotland's in a mess is because they appointed Neil Oliver as the president, and memberships apparently collapsed.
Yeah, well, I read that article as well, Stewart, and I think, given that we have bodies in Scotland, like the Historic Scotland and Scottish Natural Heritage and what have you, that actually make a success of what the National Trust are making a pig's lug out of, why don't we just close the National Trust altogether and subsume their responsibilities under these two bodies? And Neil Oliver can go away and annoy people in New Zealand again, which he's far better at.
I agree with you.
So we're offering to crowdfund an air passage on a very crowded plane for near.
Aye, absolutely jam full of people who've just finished working 8-week shifts in care homes, and they can all go to New Zealand with Neil Oliver.
As a sort of prize for being the best care home worker.
I wouldn't wish him on New Zealand.
Okay.
They could always just chuck him at the plane halfway.
I think we'll call it a day at that. Thanks for listening, folks. Thanks for being with us. Stewart Lockhead, Jimmy Hutton. I'm Norrie Stewart. And we'll no doubt catch up with you PMQs and FMQs tomorrow, I think, is it?
I believe so, aye.
It could be.
Catch up with you tomorrow. A little frazzled because it'll be back-to-back PMQs, FMQs broadcast. Okay, guys. Cheers for that. Bye for now.